Hey everyone, welcome back to the shop. I'd like to thank everyone for the comments. Very helpful. I still haven't 100% figured out which direction I'm going, but the basics I've got figured out. It's the little teeny tweaks that have to be made to it. So anyway, let's get started. All right, so to get started with some of the comments, had to do with angles. If we go with the rods from the outside of the aileron going up, there's going to be a slight change in angle. I'm going to try to make some kind of little diagram because I do have a picture such as this one right here, just showing you how they originally have them set up in the quarter scale stop. So this should be close enough. What I think we're going to be working with, I think we're going to be working with maybe 1 or 2 degrees of difference between what the top aileron is going to be at and what the bottom is going to be at. And that's a good guess. But what I'm going to try to do is somewhere in this video, I'm going to try to put together, it'll just be on cardboard, but a little template, just not really a template, but a diagram, a moving diagram of, so we can get a good measurement on it. All right, so because the bottom wing is at 2 degrees, positive 2 degrees, incidence in the top wings is 0. So just those two things in themselves are going to be different. And I don't know how that's going to affect the top wing, but because it's at 2 degrees, if we're at 1 to 2 degrees less, because it's setting horizontal versus up, that may be throwing that negative 2% to a positive 2% to make an imbalance. We're going to find out because I don't know yet. So for the other individuals that said, hey, you got to go with 4 servos, I do have 6. I just don't want to have to, because I had to do it on my big biplane. And because with the cabane struts, I was able to have the cabling come down where the cabane's mounted. They mounted up in pockets. And that came down and just with a zip tie was strapped to the cabanes going down to the fuselage. I'm trying very hard not to do it with this one because it's going to be kind of hard to hide it. Whereas the cabane struts in my sport bike, the big biplane, that whole top deck on the top of the fuselage up in front, that was all cut out and redesigned by myself to make that work. I don't want to cut apart the top of the front of the fuselage on this plane. It's just going to make a big mess. And I know what that one was like to build it because that one was built stick by stick. So that was all figured in on the initial plans, where if you're cutting something apart and trying to fix it, it just becomes a bigger mess. So anyway, I'm going to show you what how I'm going to do this and what I've got back going on over here. Now, somewhere for my little control horns, I decided to pick some of these things up. I can go over to Dubro. I'm in that little wonderful land up just north side of Chicago, where Dubro is about 1.5 miles from where I work. So I just give them a call, get the stuff ordered, lunch break, just go run over and pick it up. Where I ended up getting these from, just because the cost difference between Dubro and where I got them from is huge, it's like half price. I got these over at Motion RC. And yeah, I drive over to Motion RC. I don't have to order stuff online. Let me show you. And this is for those. I didn't hit the wrong button. And this is for those who don't know where I live. Well, how close I am. Jeff from Jeff's Custom RC. Go about 9/10 of a mile that way. That's where Motion RC is. I just go ahead and order it online, and sorry about that, and then schedule it for pickup and just go drive over. It's a couple-minute drive. So, but anyway, yeah, don't mean to be the one to brag, but I'm bragging. All right, what I decided to do, the easiest way for me to copy on what we've got set up here and how I'm going to have to make this special little mount, because I'm going to do it. I'm going to post a picture right about here. That's showing you how I did the aileron servo mount in the big 3rd scale Tailorcraft. And if you haven't seen those videos yet, start watching. Got 90, it's almost 100 videos on that restoration. It took a year and a half. Anyway, so I'm going to change this up. I don't like this little box set up because the way that the Saviks, they won't fit in there. So, and the way they've got it set up, I'd have to try to move everything around. This would be close to it, so you can see where I made my little indicator marks. And then what I did with that is I just came in with a ruler, set it down on this line, drew it, set it down on this line, drew this line down here, and did the same thing. So this is where I want to put this. Even though I've got this line back here, that's just this balsa. It's probably not going to be there. I decided I want to have it this far forward because that's a good spot for it. So this is how I'm tracing it. So I transferred everything from here to here, and everything works out when you come in and you measure the distance, because I measured the distance, inside distance here. It's exactly the same it is here. Plus I can just tweak it if I had to. So even if I made the cross beams a little bit wider, I can just go ahead and sand them down. So I'm going to continue through. I'm not going through this bay because this wing's upside down. It's actually coming through this bay. I'm going to double this up, make this a little bit wider. Once again, this is what's going to go. Sorry about that. It's these little half-A control horns are going to they're going to work very nicely there, and I could just go ahead and grind those down, and you'll see that as things progress through. So, and that will get attached here. What I'm going to do is, remember I wanted to put brass in there. As much as I like brass, I've had people say put carbon fiber, but I choose not to put carbon fiber there. What I'll probably do is I've got them 1/32 balsa, which is pretty much almost the same, about twice the thickness of that. Just go ahead and then just put a couple little pieces down here on the top and the bottom. And it's not going to be much bigger than the footprint of these things, which is a really small little footprint. I just want to have something that's going to bind a little bit harder together. So what I'll do is when I get those things cut out, they'll get glued down onto the surface down here. I'll drill the holes through them, and then through the holes I'll just go ahead and just wick some thin CA down in there. So what it's going to do is it's going to go through that hole, and it's going to get absorbed into the wood and just stiffen up this whole little piece here. So I don't think there's going to be an issue with this at all. What I'm going to do with this other little piece that's going to come through, I'll do the same thing. I'll inset it just like this is inset. So just so we've got a little bit more, just a little bit more tooth to what we're trying to do with this one. And most of this stuff will be done kind of sort of off camera, just the prep work, and I'll show you as I'm doing the assembly. Now, once we get on this side, here's where you can see a little bit closer to where everything's going to get moved over to and set up. Okay, now on the other side, the one gentleman, I don't know if it was Garrett or Garrett. I apologize if I got your name wrong, because I pretty much guarantee I did. His suggestion was to do what they did on the real plane. Instead of having it back here, to put it up here where the aileron attaches to it. Now see, on this one, what I'd have to do is I'd have to come in, and it's going to be really strange. I'd have to cut out a section of this part up here on the rear part of the wing itself, just before let's call it the trailing edge of the wing up here. I'd have to cut a notch out and then extend this piece of balsa up in between, so I can have an attachment point on the front side of the hinge line, and then one on the rear side, and use a pull cable system here. That's how they do it in real life on this. The problem I'm going to have with this is that this is not that type of hinge that's going to work with that. That's just, it's pretty much a top hinge. So this, with the gap on the bottom, it's not going to work, because I'd have to have it'd be a real pain in the butt. You'd have to have sorry about that. You'd have to extend this part through. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Extend this part through, and it's a weaker point. I just as soon not do it that way. So I think that very light difference in degree of the up and the down on the top aileron, it's going to negate any benefits I can have by that. If I was building this plane is a kit or from scratch from plans, if that had that in there, I'd put that in there. But that's just, I mean, I kind of had about 3 days of fun doing those things. I don't really want to have to take these things apart and start cutting them. So I think for this plane, because it's not designed for competition, it's designed to go out and have fun with. I think this will work just fine. All right, now that you know how I plan to do it, let's go ahead and get it done. So anyway, here's the templates. They serve their purpose. They're done. They're gone. All right, what I was able to do was, by fitting the templates to the spot where it's going, trimmed out the size, I cut out my little pieces of plywood. It's 1/8 inch. It's not light, but it's still going to do the job. It's heavier than I wanted to use, but it's rock solid stuff. Got a left side and a right side. And what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to be transferring, once I get them in, I'm going to be tracing around the underside, the other side of these caps. Caps? Yeah, the mounts. And then figure out exactly where the slot's going to have to go. Now, real quick on that, I was waiting for these to come in for the Saviks. They're probably longer than I need, but it's better to have them a little bit too long than not long enough, because you can always cut down the amount of throw on the servos. So these I was waiting to come in. I think through the old company of Amazon, it's like 5 of them for $10. And it's designed to work on the Saviks and the Futabas. All right, anyway. So we got the plywood. I've already gone ahead and ripped out some Sitka spruce. I've got a whole bunch of them sitting over there. And it's about 3/8 by 3/8. Because I didn't measure it. I just figured this is about how big I wanted it to be, and I just ripped them. So that's been ripped. And then just got some balsa stuff that I stripped up as well. So let's go ahead and let me show you how we're going to do it. All right, it's back to the old, put a little bit of masking tape on top of the piece that's going to go in, and this is going to drop into place just like this. And because I want to have these little standoff blocks, so this is where they're going to attach to, at the proper height to make this level across the top, I'm going to go ahead, these are the pieces that are getting glued in. And then what I'm going to do over here is I'm just going to go ahead, let's face it that way. So this is the old little bit of masking tape, some CA, just a couple dots on each, a little bit of kicker on the wood. And what this is going to do is these are going to make this piece stand level to the tops of the stringers. So when it comes time to go ahead and glue it in, there's not going to be an issue with it. It's going to be at the right height, so that way you're not playing a guessing game. Is, did I put it at the right height? And then you're going to have to try to either, oops, did it on the wrong side, either throw a shim in, or you're going to have to sand. Alright, so this piece is going to sit right in this position. And this is going to be the final resting place for it. And I'll tape it down just to kind of hold it in place. Alright, so I'll take my first piece right here. Let's do a little sand off on it. It's going to sit like that. So what I want to do is, because it's going in, I want to put the glue on the bottom of this so there's no chance of gluing this to this side. So I'm going to go ahead and put the glue on the bottom part, on the lower edge. And I'm going to go ahead and hold this tight, stand it up, make sure I put it on the proper way. Alright, that side's glued in. Let's go ahead and get the other side done. and that's all glued in. Alright, and then I know you can't feel it because you don't have feel-o-vision, but this is perfectly smooth from side to side. You can't tell that there's anything in there. So what I'll do is, seeing that this piece is set up, it's going to get drilled into here. The servo horn's going to come through here right by the edge. If I have to go ahead and grind a little bit of this out to make access to it, that's not a problem. So right here we're set up pretty good. What I'm going to do on the end of this is probably just going to be balsa going across here, because it doesn't, all the strength is coming from these two pieces here up against the ribs for the torsion. So what I can do is just come on in. I could leave it the way it is, but I'll probably just come in and have it set up so it's going to go across the top with balsa at about like that, and then a little joint underneath the bottom of it. All right, let me get you guys caught up. This side is done. This is the left side. All right, and that's what it looks like when it's done. It's just pretty much a simple box, but it is going to be strong enough to do what we want it to do. It's not like this, where it's overly complex, made out of balsa, which my servos wouldn't fit in. This one's designed for pretty much any standard size servo. All right, so what I did was I came up on the top was the 1/8 inch, just some regular 1/8 inch balsa, just cut to the angles, because I've already got indicator marks on there, just like I've got down here, because this side's waiting to go. So what I ended up doing was just coming in, it was cut down to the right width. This one's not cut down yet to the right width. And then I just used my little indicator marks and then just cut it out with a Zona saw. Glue them into place. What comes up underneath this piece right now, I believe, is 3/32. No, it's got to be 3/16. That makes more sense. Yeah, so anyway, there's a whole bunch of free balsa I got from one of the guys I work with, Bob, and he went to an estate sale and he bought whatever was in a room, and he had some balsa, so he ended up giving that to me. So thanks, Bob. Anyway, so this comes up, it's just a little strip about 3/8 wide, and it's just glued up into place just to support it. So that is done. That's how it looks like from the underside, and she'll live a good long life.